Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. Today I'm with Savetz K6KJN Japan, November. Kay works with the DLARC, the Digital Library of Amateur Radio Communications. I'm very intrigued to learn more about this organization. Before we get started, a quick thank you to DX Engineering for supporting Q5 Worldwide Ham Radio. Their CEO, Tim Duffy, K3LR, is a strong advocate for sharing the human side of amateur radio, whether it's contesting, DXing, parks on the air, or building your first antenna. DX Engineering helps make these conversations possible. Kay, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I think that the name implies certainly what you're doing, but would you define what the Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications is?
Sure. Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications is a free online ham radio library. It is that's my 5-word elevator pitch right there. It's a project of the Internet Archive, which is an organization that you may have heard of. If you have used or heard of the Wayback Machine, that's them. That is the thing that they're most well known for. But they do a lot of other things, including the DLARC library. And DLARC is funded by a grant by ARDC, Amateur Radio Digital Communications, which is a group that gives ham radio-related grants.
So I think many of us have heard about the Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive. At what point was DLARC part of the Internet Archive?
DLARC is, Internet Archive is like 26 years old. DLARC was started about 2.5 years ago when Internet Archive got a grant from ARDC. With the goal of creating a free online ham radio library for research, for education, for anyone who wanted to know ham radio things. So they got the grant and they tried to find someone to do it, to curate the library, and they found me. And so the project, in answer to your question, is about 2.5 years old.
So from my perspective, this is really needed. As someone who's been doing some of these video interviews for the past couple of years, it's very difficult at times to find historical information. I find a lot of it has just disappeared. I was in the hobby back in 1978, early 80s, and very difficult to find some of that information. So kudos to you and your organization for doing this work. At this point, how much have you been able to archive?
As of this morning, the DLARC library has 155,000 items of amateur radio, shortwave, college radio, early communications. Takes up 20.5 terabytes of storage space. And last year, we scanned 1.1 million pages of material. So in answer to your question, an item, when I say 150,000 items, that could be anything from a single PDF to a huge hoard of things, of material. So, but 20 terabytes, I think people can put their brain around that. So it's a lot.
And just to be clear, you're not only archiving printed materials, you're also archiving podcasts and video interviews and all sorts of things. Is that correct?
Yes. Print material, certainly. Newsletters from ham radio groups around the world, ham radio and other communications related magazines, videotapes. And some of the videotapes, are VHS. Some are U-matic tapes, professional quality stuff that was recorded in the 1970s. Some of it's on. We've done some things literally record. We had to digitize from film, so all sorts of media, and podcasts, and so things that were like born digital and things that have never been digital. A lot of the material, the stuff that excites me the most is stuff that has never been available to the public before it was digitized and published by DLARC. So it's not like, we're taking this podcast that used to be available at Libsyn, and now we have a copy too. That's nice, and there's benefits to that. But then we're finding things that maybe it was a newsletter that was sent out to 200 people in the 1970s, and so hardly anyone got to see this. But now it's digitized. It's full text searchable, and anyone can enjoy it.
So it raises a few questions for me. First of all, where are you getting the data from? Are you scraping the internet, trying to find things yourself? Are people forwarding information to you? And once you have that information in front of you, I think you'd used the word curation earlier. How are you curating the final product? How do you decide what actually makes it into the archive?
Yes, we have scraped the internet and the Wayback Machine to find things that have been out there. Yes, people send us stuff, and I actively go out and reach out to people and find what they might have. For instance, I got someone reached out to me a year and a half ago from someone who was in charge of the estate of Bob Cooper. Bob Cooper was a man who was huge in he was a ham radio operator. He was like a big deal in receiving signals via satellite, television signals via satellite, and he was the guy who basically figured out how that if you had a big dish in your backyard, you could point it at the sky and you could get HBO for free because signals were being sent unencrypted, unscrambled. And he published a pamphlet about how to descramble them and get free TV. I say free TV in air quotes because you had to have a giant expensive dish in your backyard, but fine. You would get free TV, and then of course that started off a decades-long war between the media companies who were like scrambling, and then you'd have a descrambler, and then there'd be better descramblers, and you needed, that went on for a long time. But Cooper had he had several different magazines and newsletters that he published over the years on that and related topics. He had television shows that were broadcast via satellite, and that for these enthusiasts who wanted to know about these things. And he did all sorts of other material that he created. Anyway, he died. All of his stuff ended up in a warehouse in Colorado. I went out to this warehouse, found 7 pallets of material, and got to sort through it, find out what hadn't been digitized before, and got to that's the curation is finding the good stuff, right, of 7 pallets of material. Some of it, frankly, didn't need to be digitized. It had already been done, or it just wasn't important, or personal information that for Bob that didn't need to be public. And I went through the stuff and sent it to the various scanning centers that Internet Archive has to get it digitized. And at this point, all of the text material has been digitized, and a good amount of the video material has been digitized, and we're still working on the video material. We'll be doing that through 2025 and 2026.
So I love that specific example. Do you have others that might interest the audience?
Another good example is there was a company called Fair Radio Sales in Lima, Ohio. Lima, Ohio. There was a company called Fair Radio Sales in Lima, Ohio, and they sold military surplus gear radios. They were in business for decades. Multi-generational family ran this place, and they had, in addition to radios, they had all sorts of printed material. Manuals, instruction manuals for military gear, for off-the-shelf, consumer gear, for avionics, for just everything. And they had all this material, and they were going out of business. So I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, you want to donate one copy of everything printed to Internet Archive? And he's like, sure. So I went out to Ohio, and me and a small team of helpers went through their material and took one copy of everything, and I drove it in a U-Haul to the Internet Archive Scanning Center. It was so much material; it completely filled the U-Haul box truck 2 times, and plus like another Prius worth of material. So we took one copy of everything, and that's all still being scanned. We've got a lot of it online. So that's another huge trove of material from fair radio sales. For people who love that's going to be exciting for the people who love manuals for old tube equipment and things like that.
So when you work on a project, whether it be of that size or something smaller, are you offering any sort of commentary or editorializing to provide context, or is it just there?
That's a great question. And I try to provide enough context to make the material useful, but I don't want to get in the way and editorialize about what it is or what it means or if it's important or anything. That's up to the patron. That's up to the person doing the research. So at minimum, the minimum part of my job is to put up metadata, just like the title, the creator, the year, and of that book, of that magazine, of that manual, of that newsletter, of that video. And if it's something that is audio or video, we run it all through Whisper AI transcription. So everything is full text searchable and transcribed. It might not be perfect, but it's certainly better than here's a 2-hour video, no context, have fun. It's full text searchable, so if something is mentioned that is of interest, you can find it. You can watch the original source material. So that's about as far as we go as providing context. We want to make it searchable. We want to make it easily findable, but I don't want to go farther than that because what I think is important might be very different from what someone else needs.
So as you're talking, it also occurs to me that you must have a unique set of experiences in order to know the difference between what might matter or not. Tell me a little bit about that, your ham radio background or whatever unique experience you brought to the table before you started with DLARC back 2.5 years ago.
I have been a ham radio operator since 1989 when I got my novice license. And I am not the end-all, be-all of ham radio operators. I've been on AHF only a few times in my life. I passed the Morse code test. I know my 13 words a minute, but that was years ago. I'm not, I don't claim to be the best ham that was ever on the air by any means. But I love the technology, and I know the community, and I understand the community. And I also, so that's on the left hand, and on the right hand, I understand the Internet Archive and how its infrastructure works. And I did that. I learned that over the years myself because my personal interest is old Atari 8-bit computers. So I have an Atari 800 back here behind me, and some posters. And I have for years been interviewing people who did things with old Atari computers and getting source code, and they send me schematics and they send me manuals and rare things. And so I've been digitizing things for a long time and then uploading them to Internet Archive. And in that process, I've learned a lot about how the internal structure of the Internet Archive works, how from a technical standpoint, but also just like how to be an archivist. What is metadata, and how to tag things so people can find it, and how to announce things on social media so people know it exists in the first place, and just all those little things. So when the archive came to me and said, "Hey, we have this ham radio project," it was like, well, I know both sides of the equations, and this sounds like fun.
So you referenced people knowing that it exists, and I've got to believe for a program that's only been around 2.5 years, there's probably a lot of people that don't know it exists. And frankly, the only reason I know is that you had sent an email to me because of the work I've been doing on YouTube. But how are you getting the word out, number one? And number two, what are you seeing for web visits? How many people are actually utilizing now, or do you have a sense of that?
In the first couple of years of this project, I have been focused on building the library with only a small focus on getting the word out about it. And now, as we come into the next couple of years, I need to work harder at letting people know that it exists. And now it's something it's amazing. It is an unparalleled library now, and so I feel like it's something to be proud of, and I can show it off and be, so and that includes appearing on podcasts. That includes YouTube things. We're going to be doing some more writing for articles in ham radio magazines and newsletters, maybe some advertisements, that sort of thing. I've gone to went to Pacificon last year and had a booth, and maybe next year I'll go to Hamvention and have a booth. And it's getting the word out is for me, a nerd who likes to stay inside and do things on the computer. The getting the word out is a little bit harder than the actual creation of the thing.
So I remember back in the late 70s, early 80s, when I was first getting my license, I was in high school. I remember a lineup of QSDs and 73 magazine along my dad's bookshelf, and all those have disappeared. Can I now go to DLARC and the Internet Archive to see old copies of 73 and CQ and QSD?
Let's see. The answer is yes and no. For 73, the answer is absolutely yes. Before he died, Wayne Green donated an entire run of 73 to Internet Archive, and he said, make them available. And we did, and they're available. They're full text searchable. You can look at them all. For QST, the ARRL has not they want to make their things available to their members exclusively, and that's their right. So far they have not wanted to make their QSTs available, and that's fine. However, some of them are so old. I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. Some of them are so old they're in the public domain, and so the stuff before 1926, I think, is available. QST 73 and sorry, what was the other one you said? CQ. We're trying. It's in a weird limbo right now, a legal limbo. They went out of business, and we've been trying to. We try to do everything right. I don't want to put up stuff that we don't that upset copyright holders, and we're not into that. I'm trying to, do right by the ham radio community. So we're still working on that one, and I can't tell you what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully it'll be available too one day.
So how do you deal with copyright protections? Is it just as simple as asking if people will give that up in order to be in the archive? And if it's no, and you move on?
Permission is the best way to go. I mean, if I ask permission, sometimes it works out great. With Florida Skip magazine, it was a newsletter magazine sort of thing that was published for many years, and I had a few issues given to us, and I was just like, hey, let's see if we can get more issues, see if we can make sure we got permission. And I reached out to the publisher, who had died, but his son, who's also a ham, not only gave permission and was happy to have his dad's work available, he had every issue available in the attic, and so he sent us every issue we didn't have, and so now we have a complete run of Florida Skip. So that's the number one for me. For some of the stuff was published long enough ago that everyone is gone. Everyone is a silent key. There's no one to ask. So, I make it available if I think that no one is being harmed and no one really owns it anymore. But if I reach out to someone and say, hey, can I put the material online? And they say no, thank you, or not right now, or whatever, that's their right. And if no means no, and so we move on. For some of the book material, if it's published as a book, we make them. We can make them available using a digital rights management sort of thing. So if we have one copy of the book and we have scanned it, we can lend it just like a library, just like a public library. We have one copy. We will lend one copy at a time for online reading. And when you're done, you check it back in, and then it's available to someone else. So that is some of the ways that we're trying to deal with that.
So we talked about print material and videos and podcasts. What I failed to ask about were photographs. Are you also collecting and archiving photographs?
Certainly, we have photographs. We have people can upload photographs, and that's easy. We try to put them in little collections about these photos were taken at this ham radio event this year, and people can submit photographs of whatever field day 1971 or whatever. Something I'm currently working on is we have about 4,000 photographic slides that were given to us by the California Historical Radio Society, and these are slides to accompany cassette tapes, which we've already digitized, of de-expeditions from the 60s through the 80s. And these people would go on de-expeditions to far-flung places, islands and whatnot far away. They do their de-expeditions. They would take pictures. Then they would make a slideshow on photographic slides to document their trip, and they talk about their trip at ham club meetings. So the California Historical Radio Society had all of these de-expedition talks, and they used to lend them out, to clubs or whoever. But people aren't exactly hungry for slides anymore. No one has a Kodak slide carousel projector ready to go anymore. So we are currently working to digitize the slides, so those photos are all going to be available. It's going to be in 3,500 or 4,000 or whatever it is, and so not only will we have the pictures, but we already have, for many of them, the accompanying audio. So you can sit there and play the cassette tape in one browser window and page through the pictures when you hear the beep in the other window, and enjoy a slideshow and hear about when the guys went to the Pitcairn Islands in 1965 or whatever.
So point of fact, I do have one of those Kodak slide projector carousels in my basement. And once a year, somebody in the community I live goes online looking for one, and I lend it out. I'm very proud of the fact that it's remained with me. I almost don't dare ask the next question because you have so much work ahead of you, digitizing slides and all these materials. But what does the next 2 to 5 years look like?
The ARDC gave the Internet Archive this grant to do the thing, and we spent the money. We spent this generous grant digitizing. We've got digitizing centers around the world, and it costs money to digitize things and then to get them into servers and whatnot. And there's other costs. So that got spent. And so in the last couple of months, I went to the ARDC and I was just like, hey, we did it. Success. This is, you have funded an unparalleled library and this material is available, but I could keep going, and I have like a list of things that I would like to keep doing. So I wrote another grant. I asked them for more money, and I just found out a couple weeks ago that they were just like, okay, keep going for another 2 years.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So the wonderful ARDC ponied up for another 2-year grant. And I will just kind of tell you what I told them we were planning on doing, and we'll in the next 2 years of funding. We are going to scan and add more radio-related materials from the Fair Radio sales and the collection and the Manuals Plus collection, which I haven't even told you about. I told them it would be at least another 5,000 items. I think it'll be more. We're going to do another 100 or more videotapes from the Bob Cooper collection. We're going to digitize some number of post-World War II books, which will be donated to us by the Spark Museum of Electrical Innovation in Washington. I'll be going up there in October. They have 2 rooms filled with books and materials that they said I can have at. So I don't really know what's going to be there yet, but they've sent pictures. But until I get my hands on them, it's hard to know what we need and that sort of thing. So we'll be adding stuff from the Spark Museum. And I'm always reaching out to amateur radio groups to ask to archive their newsletters. As you know, some ham radio groups have been around for 70, 80, 90 years, and some of them have been publishing newsletters for a long time. If they have a newsletter if they've already digitized it, if it was born digital, or they've already digitized it, then we can take those. Some of the groups have older newsletters that they haven't been able to digitize, in which case we can borrow the material and scan it at no cost to the club. We are in discussions to acquire some other substantial collections. So that's kind of the plan, the overall goal. But then the actual week to week can change. Someone writes to me and says they have some material, it needs to be picked up by the end of the month, otherwise they're going to lose the storage space or whatever. Then we kind of go in that direction. So.
That certainly occurred to me. I mean, you have this list of large projects, but you could get a call tomorrow and have another trove that you weren't even planning on. Kay, how can people best get to this website? What is the website URL?
The website URL is archive.org/details/DLARC, Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications. You can just Google Digital Library of Amateur Radio, you'll find it. That's how you can reach it. And I encourage people to go there and just explore. There's something there for anybody. The most popular thing there all the time, and it's not the most sexy. It's not like the thing I talk about when I'm talking on YouTube shows and podcasts and things, but it's the thing that people like most is historical callbooks. We've digitized callbooks going back forever, and so you can literally type your grandma's call sign, hit search inside the books, and you can find every call book that grandma was mentioned in, and maybe her mailing address at the time or whatever. So people love that. But then there's also the newsletters. There's a whole huge area about EME communications, moonbound stuff. There's stuff about pirate radio. There's stuff about shortwave listening. There's 100 rabbit holes, and all you need to do is find one, and then you've lost your entire weekend exploring.
Well, I appreciate you bringing back that memory of the call book. I'd actually forgotten about that back in 1978. We never had a new one. We always had one that was 4 or 5 years old, but it had a very important location on the desk back before we had QRZ.com, right?
Right.
Kay, I really appreciate the work that you're doing here. It's pretty amazing, and you're clearly the right person for the job, and I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you. I've had a great time talking to you. If people want to contact me, they can email me at kay@archive.org. That's KAY @archive.org. If you have any questions, or if you got material you want to donate, or whatever, that's where I am.
I've been talking to K6KJN, Kay Savetz at Digital Library, Amateur Radio, and Communications. Please check it out. He's doing great work. My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Worldwide Ham Radio. Thanks again, Kay.
Thanks, Kevin.